Everyone knows that the president of Group X has a personal secretary. The secretary has strong work capabilities and the boss takes the secretary wherever he goes. People outside the company all think that the secretary is the president's lover. After all, an alpha and an omega are together every day, and anyone would think they have an affair. However, only the company's internal staff knows that the boss has a constant stream of lovers, but the secretary remains unchanged, and the two are incredibly innocent. Group X does not prohibit office romances. It offers excellent welfare benefits. There is even a tryst corner specially set up for employee couples. The secretary is very good looking. Although often with a cold face, he has a sharp tongue but a kind heart and is very popular among everyone. Unfortunately, he has been the boss's secretary for 7 years and has never been in a relationship. An unwritten rule of Group X, it is prohibited to pursue the secretary, because once someone pursues the secretary, they will be targeted by the boss, then be harassed in various ways and finally be transferred from the company's headquarters. The heartless boss doesn't allow his secretary to fall in love. I'll be very troubled if you fall in love. The boss spreads his hands. If you're in a relationship, you won't focus on me, and I won't be able to summon you 24 hours a day. The secretary clenches his fists. What about my heat period? The boss. I've given you leave. Originally, I have to endure not having a secretary for 1 or 2 days every month. If you come back to work with the smell of another alpha on you, it will really affect my work. The boss. Moreover, what if you get pregnant? I'll have to approve maternity leave for you. The secretary, are you too callous? Go to the party by yourself today. Then he slams the door and leaves. The second secretary knocks on the door. Boss. Liam has packed up his things and left. The boss asks, what's the date today? The 18th. Oh, the boss nods. It's the heat period. No wonder he has such a bad temper. Approve a day and a half of leave for him, and then move the 9 o'clock meeting tomorrow to the day after tomorrow. The second secretary thinks to himself that the boss even postpones the meeting to wait for him to come back to work. Liam is so pitiful. At the same time, he pities himself. When Liam is not around, it's him who has to accompany the boss to the party. Dealing with the boss's lovers is a task that only Liam is good at. Of course, he didn't dare to ask the boss, because the boss would surely tell him to call Liam. The secretary went home in a huff. His phone received a text message from the second secretary, saying that the boss had approved his leave. He was speechless. The boss remembered his heat cycle more accurately than he himself did. How touching. However, the secretary was no longer a novice in the workplace. Having been the boss's secretary for 7 years, he fully realized how heartless his boss was. Hey, Liam, where's my blue tie? He doesn't even let him off during the vacation. It's hanging on the black suit in the second wardrobe on the left as you enter your personal lounge. The secretary says calmly. In addition, I'm preparing for my heat period now. Please don't call me about such things. Go and ask Noah to find it. Otherwise, give me Noah's salary this month. Goodbye. In fact, as a boss, Oliver is very qualified. He takes him for regular health checks. The inhibitors and blockers are all the most expensive ones bought with company reimbursement. All kinds of anti-marking collars are also bought as soon as they are updated. Although he is heartless, he never withholds salaries and gives high bonuses. More importantly, as an elite alpha, he is charming, handsome, and shows great concern for his subordinates. It would be a lie to say that Liam isn't attracted. However, whenever Liam has the slightest bit of a crush, the boss will quickly nip this budding feeling in the bud. It was the 3rd year of the secretary's work. He had been working non-stop for a week and finally collapsed from illness and was hospitalized. In the afternoon, he saw the boss rushing in anxiously with a fruit basket. How could you get sick? Liam, the boss held his hand. The secretary was flattered. Oliver, I'm fine. You have a meeting this afternoon. Why did you come? The boss sincerely said. Liam, what could be more important than your health? You must work healthily for our company for another 50 years. The boss. By the way, to avoid delaying work, I've brought your laptop. Can you come to work tomorrow? The secretary. Yes, Oliver. Liam finally understood that the boss just found him the most useful, which was why he showed such meticulous care and sincerely hoped that he wouldn't get sick, be marked, or get pregnant. He was also used to the employees calling him the boss's wife behind his back. This delicate status did bring him some benefits. The secretary began to prepare for the upcoming heat. He made the bed, laid out the props, and took the pheromone placebo from the medicine cabinet. In fact, his placebo was also the boss's pheromone because the boss thought that if there was the smell of other alphas on him, it would affect his work. There are blockers available. Currently, Blockers can block more than 98% of the pheromone smell, but the boss just won't let go of that remaining 2%. When opening the medicine box, the secretary found that the blockers were used up. Fortunately, he was at home. He could just buy some tomorrow and get the boss to reimburse him. He took out his massage stick and was about to warm it up when the phone rang. It was Noah. Liam answered the phone. Noah, if you're calling because you can't find a tie, I'll ask Oliver to deduct your salary this month. On the other end of the phone, Noah was out of breath. No. Liam, Oliver is missing. The secretary was furious. I've just taken off my pants and you tell me the boss is lost? Noah honestly admitted his mistake as a beta. How could I stop the boss? The female companion at the party is Oliver's current lover. She is in heat and plans to have a child to tie him down. After all, everyone knows that the boss never marks his lovers, and no one has ever been with him for more than 4 months. Although the boss is a bit of a miser, he is rich, handsome, and an excellent alpha. There are many people who want to marry him. Noah asked the boss why he didn't want to fall in love and get married. The boss said that love would interfere with work. But I have no problem with office romances. Since you're all from the same company, just use overtime as a substitute for dates. The boss's words earned him a disdainful look from Liam behind him. As for the boss himself, he was also very dissatisfied with being drugged. If he did something absurd and was photographed by the media, it would be difficult to deal with. Of course, he would never go to his lover. He's not crazy. He would never mark an omega and make her pregnant. How much money would that cost? The boss instinctively wanted to find Liam and let the secretary figure it out. Over there, Liam had just put on his pants and was still on the phone with Noah. Go find that lover first and figure out the effects of the drug. Then, don't miss a single paparazzi. Check them all out. Can you check the surveillance? Hurry up and find the boss. The heat came at the worst time. He's so weak in the legs that he can't even leave the room. Liam said, I can't go out right now. You have to try your best. As he was speaking, he heard the door open. On the other end of the line, Noah heard a noise, as if someone had fallen and let out a muffled groan. He quickly asked, Liam, what happened to you? Are you okay? On the other end, the voice said, It's okay. Don't look anymore. The boss is here with me. I'll contact you if there's anything. Then the call ended. As soon as Liam closed the door, his phone was flung aside. The strong alpha pinned him against the door. His scorching breath hit Liam's neck. The boss was like a big dog, sniffing his pheromones and licking and biting his collarbone. So fragrant. The secretary's pheromones smelled like the sweetness of loquats. Usually it was faint, but during the heat, it became intense, which made the boss remember that he hadn't eaten much at the party. Wake up, Oliver. Do you know who I am? Although he was telling the boss to come to his senses. In fact, the secretary was already dizzy. The placebo he usually used was the boss's scent. Now being surrounded by the boss's pheromones, he could hardly stand. The smell of boiling black tea. The secretary's brain began to slow down due to the excessive pheromones. And his body also craved the alpha's touch very much. The boss had already kissed him, and those big hands slipped into his pajamas and clung tightly to the secretary. The boss undid the buttons very quickly. By the time the secretary realized it, he had been stripped naked. The secretary with his chest against the door felt a bit cold. He whimpered and tugged at the boss's sleeve. Boss, at least go to the bed. Before he could finish, he was picked up in his arms. The boss swept all the miscellaneous props and potions on the bed onto the floor and then gently placed the little secretary on it. Although you don't seem to be in a rational state right now, I hope you'll be gentle with your employees first time. Since he couldn't resist, he might as well enjoy it. Having sex with a real, live alpha was a first for the secretary in all these years. He was both excited and scared. Who asked him to have really liked the heartless boss? Sleeping with the boss wouldn't be a bad deal. The boss looked at the poor secretary. Okay, help me untie my tie. The secretary, being pinned down, was crying and having a hard time untying the tie. Then he found it was a khaki-colored tie. The secretary cried and cursed. Why can't you ever find that blue tie? Previously, he'd heard from the boss's lovers that the boss was good in bed. He didn't know why, but no matter how much the secretary explained, those lovers firmly believed that he and the boss had an affair. Then they filled his head with the idea of how good the boss was to them in bed. Today, the secretary finally got to experience the boss's skills firsthand, perhaps due to taking medicine. The boss didn't say much and just kissed him stickily. The secretary had never experienced such things before and was at a loss. The boss took off his suit, unbuttoned his shirt, and threw them into the corner of the bed. The secretary felt sorry for it and said, Boss, this one is expensive. What should I say when sending it for cleaning tomorrow? The boss doesn't answer, and soon the secretary won't have the wits to think about this either. First, he even comforted the secretary a few times with phrases like, "It doesn't hurt and don't be afraid." But later he immediately threw the matter of taking care of the secretary's first time out of his mind, and the bed frame was shaken constantly by his movements. He thought, why didn't he find that the little secretary was so delicious? Usually looking very strict, it turned out that under the always meticulous white shirt, there was such an alluring body hidden. It was probably about 6 years ago that the secretary cried in front of him. Later, he did things more and more thoughtfully and never gave the boss a chance to criticize him again. Actually, he looks very cute when crying. The boss stroked the secretary's thin belly and asked, "Can Liam get pregnant?" The secretary gasped for breath and said, "Then give me a vacation. He doesn't look cute like this." The secretary's heat period didn't end until the next morning. The boss kept having sex with him and even wanted to mark him at one point. So sweet. The secretary's lower back felt numb and he could only cry. The fresh and sweet fruit fragrance mixed with the smell of black tea filled the whole room. The boss's breath hit the back of his neck, which was a bit dangerous. "No, I can't. I can't be marked." The secretary covered his neck. He thought that he could still make up for it by sleeping. If he was marked, he couldn't do this job anymore. What would the boss do after he sobered up? But the boss looked at him with wet eyes like a dog waiting to be fed and said, "I'll bite gently. Just one bite." The secretary softened his heart. A short-term mark would only last for half a month. If he wore a collar, it should not be noticed. "Well, just one bite. You must not give me a permanent mark." Finally, after coaxing the boss to sleep, the secretary got out of bed and called Noah. "Come here quickly and pick up Oliver. Send yesterday's clothes to the dry cleaner. If he wakes up and asks, just say he vomited on them himself. He should wake up in the car." Noah asked nervously, "Liam, are you okay?" Liam said, "Bring me blockers and contraceptives. Drive here yourself. If you let a third person know about this, you're dead." Noah asked, "Ma'am, have you really managed to be with the boss?" Liam hung up the phone. After seeing the boss off, he fell into bed and slept. The energy consumption during the heat period was too great, especially since he had to clean up after the boss. Being a secretary was really not easy. When he woke up, there were a bunch of missed calls on his phone, all from Noah. So he called back. "Ah, Liam, why did you just answer my call? I put it on silent. Only the boss's calls have a ringtone." The secretary rubbed his waist. He was so busy before that he only remembered taking the medicine and fell asleep without taking a shower. Now there were dry marks on his legs. "Say what you have to say quickly. I'm very annoyed now." "Okay." It's been confirmed that it was indeed the boss's lover who put the drug in the wine. The ingredients have been checked, and the side effects aren't serious. It just makes the alpha go into heat along with the omega's heat cycle. The alpha will come to their senses after the omega's heat is over, but they won't remember this afterwards. Noah was worried that Liam would be sad after hearing this, so he added, "But it doesn't matter. I'll testify." Liam slapped his thigh and said, "Great." Noah said, "Ah." Liam, delete our chat history. Nothing happened. If others find out, you'll lose your job. Understand? Okay. By the way, Oliver woke up in the car and went straight to the company. We've also taken care of the media. Don't worry. Noah was about to say something else when he saw the boss reaching out his hand to him. Oliver wants to talk to you." "Oh." Liam turned over in bed. "Oliver, what's up?" The boss asked him. "Liam, why aren't you coming to work yet? Isn't your heat over? There are a lot of things waiting for you." "I don't want to go." "Don't want to go to work? What did you do during your heat that made you so tired?" The boss was very concerned. "Is there any abnormal situation? Do you want to go to the hospital for a checkup?" Liam took a deep breath and told himself not to get angry with the boss. "It's okay. I'll come to work in an hour." "That's good. Bring a cup of coffee up. The usual one will do." "What's wrong, Liam?" You asked Noah to buy it." The boss was hung up on again. He was confused and asked Noah, "Why is he so angry?" Noah trembled. "Boss, I'll go buy the coffee." Only after taking a shower did the secretary realize how intense yesterday had been. His hip bones felt like they were about to fall apart, and there were bruises on his waist, especially his neck, which was bitten badly. Even when he buttoned up his shirt to the top, those ambiguous red marks were still visible, so he had to cover them with a plaster. He used both oral and spray blockers and put on a collar. Only after making sure there was no trace of the boss's scent on him did the secretary feel relieved to go out. He bumped into Noah, who was going out when he arrived at the company. Noah rushed over. "Liam, you're finally here. The boss is so scary. I'm afraid I'll accidentally let it slip. You must compare our testimonies with me after you talk to the boss. Liam patted him. Okay. Where are you going, Noah? I'm going to send documents to Theodore and buy milk tea for the boss. Liam, didn't you just buy coffee? Noah, he said he wants something sweet again. After saying goodbye to Noah, Liam went into the toilet. At first, he didn't notice, but as he walked along, the wound that had been bitten and swollen last night rubbed against the fabric, itching and hurting. So he had to stick 2 band-aids on it as an emergency measure. Thinking of this, the secretary cursed the boss 3,000 times again. After checking again and feeling that everything was okay, he went into the boss's office to report. The first thing he did when he entered the room was to rummage through the boss's personal lounge and cloakroom to find that blue tie. Isn't it right here? He complained. The boss slumped in the chair. Got it. I'll bring it next time. Okay, then I'll go out. Just as the secretary was about to leave, he was called back. Wait a minute, Liam. Why are you wearing an anti-bite neck collar today? And there are plasters too. What's going on? The boss frowned. Because the secretary rarely wore this even during the heat period before, the company was safe enough. Why would he wear it today? Are you afraid that I'll bite you? The secretary lowered his head. No, I just twisted my neck accidentally. Obviously, the boss didn't believe it. Every time he took a step back, the boss took a step forward until he was cornered at the door. The boss leaned over, bringing his nose close to the secretary's neck to sniff. There was no smell at all. This was even more strange. After the secretary's heat period just ended, he usually waited for the blocker to stop working before coming, because he wasn't used to not being able to smell the secretary's pheromones. Didn't I tell you not to use blockers when you're with me? Because this heat period was a bit special. I was afraid it would affect your work. The secretary explained like this. Are you hiding something from me? The boss touched the secretary's neck collar, and the other man actually trembled. Did the secretary fear him? He looked at the secretary more carefully, although he couldn't smell anything. The expression, the red-rimmed eyes. He should have cried last night. His lips were also swollen, as if they had been bitten by someone. Could it be that someone has laid a hand on his secretary? Thinking of this, he reached out to remove the plaster on the secretary's neck. The secretary quickly tried to stop him. Oliver, the effect won't be good if you take it off. But he couldn't stop him. The boss grabbed his wrist and moved it away, then removed the plaster. Then he saw a conspicuous hickey on the secretary's fair neck, extending all the way into his collar. The boss was silent for a long time, taking deep breaths. His chest heaved so much that the secretary could notice. Can I undo your buttons? Well, I suggest you not do this. It was of no use. The secretary gave up struggling. He knew the boss definitely wouldn't listen to him. The boss was really angry. Those ambiguous purple and blue marks were obviously left after a passionate encounter. His head was about to explode when he saw them. Who did this? He removed the secretary's neck collar, and there was a faint tooth mark on the back of the other man's neck. Marked you? The secretary pushed the boss's hand away and quickly put the neck collar back on. He was really afraid that the boss would be stimulated. It's okay. I've taken medicine. Don't worry. As a result, the boss got even angrier. Tell me who it is. I'll go and kill him right now. It's you yourself. The secretary thought so, but of course he couldn't answer like that, so he pretended to be pitiful. Sorry, I don't want to say it now. Can I tell you tomorrow? The boss fell silent. After a long while, he buttoned up the secretary's shirt one by one and stroked his head. Tell me if there's anything. Do you want a vacation? Is there such a good thing? But the secretary resisted the temptation. No, boss, I'll go back to work. Call me if you need anything. Before leaving, he even tidied up the boss's tie. Noah came back and found the boss standing alone beside the desk. With a very low air pressure, he carefully placed the milk tea on the table and said, Boss, here's the milk tea. The boss suddenly erupted and turned into a desktop cleaner, sweeping all the things on the table to the ground. After sweeping, he still wasn't satisfied and even smashed the vase placed on the cabinet. I won't drink it anymore. Noah was mopping the floor. He lovingly swept the tapioca pearls from the milk tea into the dustpan, sorrowfully threw the vase fragments into the trash can, and despairingly wiped the documents on the floor clean and put them back in place one by one. Okay, boss. Noah felt that the number of times he went out to buy things today had significantly increased. Damn it. He also cursed the boss in his heart 3,000 times. However, he wasn't Liam. The only person in the whole company who dared to speak ill of the boss to his face was Liam. On the way, he met Theodore. Theodore said, Going out again? Noah hugged his phone and said with a sob, this was supposed to be an easy day, but an accident has made Noah, who was already very busy, even busier. Theodore patted him on the shoulder and said, okay, bring me an afternoon tea. Noah said, okay, manager. Liam was organizing the boss's schedule. The more he looked at it, the heavier his eyelids became. He hadn't slept much at all. How could the boss be so energetic? He squinted his eyes and buried his head in his arms, feeling quite guilty towards the boss. He thought it wouldn't hurt to slack off a bit. Moreover, it was his fault in the first place. The secretary thought, if he hadn't gone too far, how could he have dozed off during work? Speaking of which, this should be counted as an industrial injury. While he was in a daze, a hand knocked on his desk. The secretary looked up and it was the boss. The boss didn't blame him for sleeping either and said to him, come in for a moment. Oh, lock the door. The secretary obediently locked the door from the inside. After locking it, he realized something was wrong. What was the boss going to do? Why did he even ask to lock the door? He was still brainstorming when the boss pushed him onto the sofa and started unbuttoning his shirt. Boss, what are you doing again? The boss took out a tube of ointment from the bag and said, does it hurt? Let me apply the medicine for you. There's no need for this. I can do it myself. Ah! Before the secretary could finish his sentence, the boss took action first. The band-aid was peeled off with a swish, and the pain made his tears well up. It hurts. Can you be more careful? Sorry. I'll be gentler here. Seeing the secretary trembling violently, the boss felt a bit embarrassed. The secretary turned his head away and refused to look at him. His snow-white neck with a black collar was very alluring. The boss swallowed hard and slowly tore the band-aid on the right side. The band-aid was very sticky and pulled the already swollen and red flesh bit by bit, and the feeling of exposure to the air was very obvious. The secretary grabbed the sofa cushion so tightly that it wrinkled. The feeling of being pulled reminded him of how the boss touched him last night. By the time the band-aid was removed, his palm was already sweaty. That's enough. The secretary shrank back, but the boss didn't let him go. He squeezed out a bean-sized amount of ointment and applied it to the secretary's chest, coaxing him to let him apply the medicine. Be good. It won't hurt after I rub it in. It's not about the pain. It's that you're too close. The secretary was on the verge of crying. If the boss had teased him like this on a normal day, he would definitely have threatened to report him for sexual harassment to 1818 Gold Eye. But it just happened to be now. An Omega who had just ended his heat couldn't resist the Alpha who had marked him for the first time. He craved the Alpha's touch more than anyone else. The boss probably also relaxed, and the smell of his pheromones wafted out intentionally or unintentionally. The strong smell of black tea enveloped the secretary, making him so comfortable that even his blinking slowed down. The boss's warm big hand covered his chest. The milky white ointment turned translucent with the heat, and his thumb gently circled around. Do you treat other subordinates this well? The secretary asked in a daze. This didn't seem like a question he would ask when he was sober. The boss, who was concentrating on applying the medicine to the secretary, was stunned for a moment. The secretary hadn't asked him such a childish question for many years. This moment seemed to take them back to the time when the secretary had just started working, when he always relied on the boss. The ointment had been completely rubbed in, making the area look bright and rosy. The boss deliberately averted his eyes. There was a moment of silence between the two, and only their breathing and heartbeats could be heard. The secretary's clothes were open, and his well-fitting suit jacket was wrinkled by the movement. His eyes were still moist, and he looked at the boss with a hazy and submissive look. No, only for Liam. He picked up the secretary horizontally and put him on the sofa bed in his lounge. The secretary was lighter than he expected. Are you sleepy? Take a nap. I'll wake you up when work is over. The schedule is on my desk. Yes, go to sleep. The boss left his coat for the secretary. The smell of the Alpha's pheromones enveloped the marked Omega, and the secretary slept very securely. Noah, review the schedule again. Go quickly. Liam decided to enter the boss's office less frequently in the recent half-month. He would work outside. It was really tough for him to have to stay rational while smelling the scent of the Alpha who had marked him every day. The boss asked him what exactly had happened. The secretary lied that it was an unknown Alpha, and the accident occurred because he went out to find the Alpha after receiving a call. But don't worry, it's a short-term mark. He'll return to normal in half a month, he explained. After hearing this, the boss felt even more guilty, with an almost crying expression on his face. The secretary felt embarrassed to deceive him anymore. He was organizing the meeting minutes from the morning when Noah came back wet, carrying a box of egg tarts. He hadn't even had time to change his clothes and looked extremely pitiful. Liam, what's going on? Did you run into a sprinkler truck? Noah put down the egg tarts. This is the water I got splashed with when I went to break up with someone on behalf of the boss. Ah, Liam nervously wiped his hair. Usually, he was the one to do this kind of thing, but now it had fallen to Noah. He changed the subject. You bought egg tarts again. Has the boss been eating too many sweet things recently? Noah, no. I bought these for myself. He paused and then added, if you want to eat, you can. After all, according to why is Secretary Kim so special? You'll become the boss's wife in at most 2 years. What are you talking about? Although he didn't quite understand, Liam still took an egg tart. He's marked you. Noah whispered. Next, you can use resignation to advance the plot. Liam, are you crazy? I'm not going to resign. With such a high salary, I'll work beside Oliver until I retire. Are you really not considering it? The boss obviously likes you. Don't you like the boss? It's a bit childish to talk about liking someone in the workplace. Liam finished eating. Moreover, the boss has said that he won't date his subordinates. According to what you're saying, you'll be the boss's wife in 5 years. When did I ever say such a thing? The boss paced back and forth in the office. Theodore sat on the sofa and replied to him. You did say that 4 years ago, in front of Liam. Although you don't oppose office romances, you definitely won't date your subordinates yourself. The boss sighed. But when I think about Liam being marked by someone else, someone who's not even as good as me, it's like the cabbage I've raised at home has been eaten by a pig. Is Liam that special? Then you might as well marry him. Theodore was speechless. Do you know there's already a group in the company discussing your marriage? The boss said, you don't understand. Liam has been with me for 7 years. He started interning with me before he even graduated from college. I've trained him myself. I'll never find a secretary more suitable for me than him. Subconsciously, he regarded his secretary as part of his own territory. He wouldn't make a move, and he definitely wouldn't allow others to either. Theodore, so you should get married. Lovers may break up, and I get bored quickly. You don't understand. So-called love doesn't last as long as interests. I need Liam, and he's very satisfied with the high salary I offer. Isn't this great? Theodore analyzed rationally. But Liam is 28 years old. You can't keep him from dating forever. Theodore thought that a boss who doesn't get married himself and also prevents his secretary from dating is terrible. But he didn't say it. If he did, he'd be transferred to another place. The boss stroked his chin and said, but if one is in a relationship, they'll get married. Once married, they might get pregnant. When pregnant, they'll need maternity leave. And it's paid. Even after returning to work, they'll take time off to take care of the baby. Then you should have hired a beta as your secretary. Betas are less likely to get pregnant, but Liam has excellent grades and is also very handsome. The boss thought for a moment, didn't I also hire Noah later? It's just that he's not very smart and only knows one thing all day long. Noah opened the door to make a report, then closed the door and left. I'm still different from Liam, Noah said with a sob. If you go to resign, the boss will try to keep you, but if I go to resign, I'll really be fired by the boss. Recently, Liam has been coming to his own office less often and always asks Noah to hand in documents on his behalf. The boss suspected. Did I give him a psychological shadow? He felt extremely guilty. It was all because of him that Liam went out during his heat and got marked. If this also affected the secretary's daily life, he would feel even worse. Theodore told him, then you should restrain your pheromones recently. An omega who has just been marked will definitely feel uncomfortable smelling other alpha scents. By the way, do you know? Actually, everyone in our company is guessing if you finally made a move on Liam. Do you want to clarify? The boss waved his hand and said, no need to clarify. Let everyone think so. Sacrifice my image to preserve the secretary's innocence. Actually, there's no innocence left. Theodore was speechless. Their boss was truly strange. As for Liam himself, when he could smell the pheromones, he dared not get too close for fear of losing his composure. When he couldn't smell them, he missed them terribly. He is often emotionally unstable now. Having been marked for the first time, he always feels that he might get pregnant. Rationally, he clearly knows that he has taken the pill and definitely won't conceive, but he just can't help touching his belly and imagining that there is a little life there. This kind of emotion has forced the secretary to have a tendency to nest. He has always liked to huddle in the corner recently, making sure that there are things around him to block him. Without the comfort of his partner's pheromones, he feels insecure. And the placebo with a similar smell can never replace the real thing. In short, the secretary really wants to be close to the boss every day now, but he can't, and he's almost going crazy from the pent-up desire. During a meeting, the boss looked back at the secretary and found that his eyes were full of resentment. He was shocked and immediately asked him after the meeting, "What's wrong? Do you have any dissatisfaction with me recently?" He thought the secretary looked unwell. Listless, the secretary shook his head and said, "I have no dissatisfaction. But why can't I smell your pheromones recently?" The boss thought to himself, "Great. The secretary finally noticed my considerate and subtle humanistic care." So he pretended to be nonchalant and said casually, "It's nothing. I'm afraid you'd be repulsed by other alpha scents. Don't be too grateful." "Thank you. My foot." The secretary said, "Thank you, but there's no need to deliberately restrain yourself. I'm used to your pheromones. It's just a small thing. Taking care of you is what a boss should do." The boss thought the secretary was being polite and felt even more proud. He patted the secretary on the shoulder and said, "Don't be stubborn." The secretary was so angry that he stammered, "I'm not. Seriously, don't do this." The boss waved his hand and left a handsome back view. "Noah, brother, do you want to hit the boss?" Liam snorted coldly, "How dare I?" He walked forward with the meeting minutes in his hand, making a thud, thud, thud sound, and then stopped. "Noah, don't buy any sweet things for the boss this week. Just say it's on my order. He should cut down on sugar." Isabella came over from a distance and nudged Noah. "Oh my. Is this the demeanor of the legitimate wife? I feel that the atmosphere between the boss and Liam has been different recently. Is there something going on?" "Noah, tell me, has the boss marked Liam?" Noah nervously denied it. "I don't know. How can I talk nonsense about the affairs of the court?" "Noah, aren't you the group leader of their marriage-urging discussion group?" Isabella asked suspiciously. "Haven't you switched sides? Have you?" Noah smiled awkwardly and didn't defend himself. Liam had forbidden him to talk about it. Even if he had 10 times the courage, he wouldn't dare to tell the truth. Offending the boss would only result in a deduction of salary, and offending Liam would mean he couldn't get along here anymore. After all, most of the time, the boss had to listen to Liam. Actually, recently, the boss's mother had been urging him to get married. She even called him about it, asking him every day to keep an eye on when she could hold her grandson. He thought, well, the best candidate for your daughter-in-law isn't saying a word. What can I do? Noah, who had been deducted 300 yuan by the boss for telling him your mother is forcing you to get married on the grounds of using dirty words, was crying and had no one to talk to. He tried to drown his sorrows in milk tea, but it only made him feel worse. The Liam whom he had high hopes for to torment the boss was also very worried now. He stood at the door of the boss's office, thinking about how to get the boss to release some pheromones. As soon as the boss opened the door, he saw Liam. The latter was startled by his sudden action and quickly put down his hands that were clasped together. "What's the matter?" He subconsciously wanted to touch the skin on the secretary's nape, but then he thought it was inappropriate when he raised his hand, so he pretended there was dust and brushed it off the other's shoulder. It's not a big deal." The secretary looked unusually hesitant. There was a hint of pleading in his eyes as he looked up at him. "Oliver, can we go inside and talk?" "Okay, sure." For some reason, he felt a bit thirsty. After entering the office, the secretary felt a bit more at ease. He needed a closed space. Besides, it was really embarrassing to ask his alpha superior to let him smell some of his pheromones. He was afraid that if others heard about it, there would be gossip. The secretary sat on the edge of the sofa. When the boss also came to sit there, it scared him so much that he immediately stood up. "Liam, are you so distant from me that you don't even want to sit next to me?" The boss was hurt. It was just a temporary mark. If it had been a permanent mark, wouldn't his secretary have resigned already? The secretary sighed. "Please don't be like this. I'm just a bit sensitive recently." He was afraid that the boss would keep staring at him like that. Those eyes could look so affectionate even when looking at a rag, and his coquetry always worked wonders. Maybe the boss himself didn't realize it, but whenever he had something to ask the secretary, he would look at the person without taking his eyes off them, like a big dog squatting at one's feet. It always made the secretary's heart soften, and he would want to give the boss everything he had. Probably everyone who had dated the boss was quite taken in by this. Although he was already in his 30s, he still looked a bit cute like a teenager. The boss said, "All right, tell me what it is." "There are 2 things. First, about the marking. Please don't blame yourself really." The secretary chose his words carefully, although it happened rather unexpectedly. "I was willing in the latter part of it. I wasn't unwilling. and I'm not young anymore myself. I'll be responsible for my own actions. The boss got angry, but that beginning wasn't okay either. Why isn't he responsible for his actions then? The secretary felt guilty because he didn't know. Well, he said he'd come to me later. Anyway, he made up an excuse to get through it first. What? Come to you? Then do you still want to be with him? He's the kind of person who... The boss was on the verge of collapse. He didn't expect the secretary to speak up for that alpha. It's been a week. Has he contacted you? He's just a lecherous, shameless, despicable scoundrel. Well, no. He's actually a nice guy. Stop scolding yourself. You've only met him once. You can know a person's face but not their heart. Liam. The boss exhorted earnestly. He might just be lusting after your body. Don't be deceived by his feelings. All these alphas are bastards. The secretary couldn't hold it in anymore. Boss. You're also one of those bastards. The boss said, can I be the same as them? I'll take responsibility. I hope so. The secretary quickly ended the topic. There's another thing. As I said before, you don't have to deliberately restrain your pheromones anymore. Why? Aren't you not repelled by my pheromones? Although the secretary had already prepared what to say, it was still embarrassing to actually say it. I'm not repulsed. Actually, I'm quite used to your scent. After all, the placebo I use is also... He felt his face burning. Anyway, I'll feel a bit uneasy if I can't smell your pheromones. Do you mean you like my pheromones? The boss asked. You could put it that way, but don't release so much. I'll get dizzy. The secretary's earlobes were red. It made the boss itch to touch him, but in the end, he just ruffled his hair. He almost forgot that he had previously required the secretary to only choose black tea as the placebo. The secretary should be very familiar with his scent. Liam, don't fall in love with him. Okay. During the secretary's heat, he should naturally carry his scent. Got it. I still have something to do. I'll go out first. Unable to bear the atmosphere in the room, the secretary covered his nose and rushed out. Damn, boss. Stop tempting me. The secretary gritted his teeth. How could he ruffle his hair and say such things as asking him not to fall in love? He made him fall for him but didn't take responsibility. He clearly said he wouldn't have a relationship with his subordinates. Yet he came to seduce him. How annoying. What's even more annoying is that the secretary threw himself into work resentfully, determined to drive the image of the boss out of his mind with work. As soon as Theodore entered the office and looked at the boss's silent back, he pinched his nose and asked, "Excuse me, did you display your pheromones here just now? Why does the room smell of your pheromones? Did you just sexually harass Liam?" The boss nodded. That's right. I can't let that person sexually harass Liam. Are you listening to me? The boss called Noah on the phone. Although the secretary promised him that he wouldn't fall in love, the secretary was so good looking. As the saying goes, it's not the theft by thieves that one should worry about, but their constant coveting. It's better to take precautions. Noah, I'll allocate a sum of funds to you. Noah. Boss, have you finally had a conscience and decided to subsidize me? The boss shook his head. No. I'm asking you to hire a private detective to find out who the person targeting Liam is. If he tries to get close to Liam recently, stop him. Noah said, this is wrong. Boss, do you have objections? You only know how to complain all day long. You even dare to shirk when I ask you to do something. Do you not want to work here anymore? Noah retorted, where do I only know how to complain? The boss slapped him on the head with a smack. Noah. This is too much, boss. Theodore finally couldn't stand it anymore. He said, Oliver, you've been stopping Liam from dating every day. And now you want to investigate him. If he finds out, he'll be so angry that he'll quit. He won't quit. We have a contract. The boss smiled smugly. Last year, I added a clause to the contract that if Liam quits within 8 years, he has to pay me a penalty. Of course. He also agreed. Noah was shocked. What? Boss, what about my contract? The boss patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry. You're not worth that. If you don't want to be fired, go out and do your job quickly. Noah covered his mouth sadly to avoid making a sound. This sleep was really sound. The secretary got up and stretched. The white shirt on him was a bit wrinkled from sleeping. The secretary is a person who pays great attention to the sense of ritual. He will definitely change into pajamas when sleeping. The reason he wore the shirt was simply because it belonged to the boss. For this, he even used the money he had saved this month for buying a house to buy the boss a new undershirt. The boss was still very happy when he received it. He gestured with the clothes and asked him, is today a special day? Why did you give me a gift? I just suddenly thought of you when I saw it, the secretary said with a smile. Can you change into it now? I really want to see. The boss happily went to change into the new clothes, and the secretary happily took the old shirt away without permission. Stealing is not a good behavior, but in this special period, the secretary really wants something with the smell of his alpha, preferably close-fitting clothes. The boss definitely won't blame him. He'll just secretly put it back in the closet after this period. Moreover, he takes better care of this shirt than the boss himself. He folds it neatly every day and seals it in a bag, and only takes it out to wear when sleeping. The secretary is a very self-disciplined person. He devotes all his time to work and the boss. It's common for him to take work home. He only relaxes when he lies in bed. The boss's shirt is a bit big for him. The hem covers his butt, and the cuffs are also a bit long, but the secretary likes it very much. It makes him feel small. The faint smell of black tea makes him feel as if he's really curled up in the boss's arms. Sometimes he even touches his stomach and asks, "What should we name the baby?" Then he blushes with embarrassment when he realizes he's been talking to himself. The secretary was reluctant to iron it. He took it off, folded it neatly, and put it into a sealed bag. He was afraid that the smell of the boss's pheromone would fade away. When he arrived at the company, Noah was rarely earlier than him. Lying on the table, he said, "Oliver is so full of himself. You bought him a new piece of clothing, and he showed it off to the whole company. I even buy him milk tea every day, but he never praises me once. Well, he's just such a childish person." Liam found it amusing secretly but also felt happy because the boss really cared about him. Noah said, "The boss even asked me to find a detective to look for an alpha for you. Where am I supposed to find one for him?" "Liam, just come clean. Maybe he'll even give you a raise when he's happy." Liam shook his head with a smile. Noah was such an innocent guy. After 4 years of working together, he still didn't understand any rules and couldn't be taught. "Do you think it's a game? The boss will get bored after a while. It'll be even more difficult for me to stay then." "How could that be? You've been with him for 7 years, and it's always been fresh." "That's because he hasn't really had me, and I'm very capable, so I can't let him know that he's already had a taste of me. Understand?" Noah sighed at the image of the boss in Liam's eyes, but he still wanted to play matchmaker. So he asked, "Then what will it take for you to believe that the boss isn't just interested in you for a moment?" Well, in his eyes, the boss had been interested for years, and he still had to explain. Liam didn't even look up. "Then give me 1% of the company's shares." Noah suggested, "How about something more realistic? How about getting married? What if we get divorced and he takes half of my property?" The boss said, "It's more cost-effective for me to give him some company shares." Theodore couldn't bear it any longer and said, "Are you crazy? I asked you to consider getting married. Who asked you to think about divorce right away?" The boss said, "We have to consider the risks and consequences in everything. That's also why I'm the boss of the company." Theodore said, "The reason you're the boss here is that your mother was the previous boss. Do you want to be transferred to the Indian branch?" "Sorry, boss." Theodore bowed to the capital. "But I think you can consider what I said about getting married. Doesn't your mom keep forwarding those official accounts online that say it's most suitable for men to have children at 30? If we apply your theory of risk avoidance, no one is more suitable to marry than Liam. He still has the phone numbers of all your exes." The boss thought what he said seemed to make sense, but he didn't know what Liam was thinking. The secretary was good at everything, from company business to tying ties. He did everything perfectly, but he didn't know if it was just professional ethics or something else. After work, the boss called the secretary to his office. Recently, the boss had been paying extra attention to his love life. The secretary was used to it. When asked about his ideal partner, he said, "Someone with a strong sense of career, positive, and responsible. How about me? Do you want to try dating me with marriage in mind?" the boss asked. The secretary looked down at his watch. The boss said, "Don't look. It's not April Fool's Day. I'm serious." "Then please allow me to decline." The secretary said, "If there's nothing else, I'll go out. I still have a lot of things to do." Seeing him turn to leave, the boss quickly grabbed him and said, "Why? I'm positive, responsible, and promising. Do you know what you're rejecting? It's the love of the boss of X Group, your superior. Do you want to use work time for personal matters?" The secretary couldn't break free as the boss held him. He could only be pulled back to the tea table and pressed onto the sofa. Doing this violates the company's rules. "What personal matters? You're my secretary. Aren't my personal matters your official duties? And it's clearly off work time now." The boss took out a plate of cherries from the lower layer of the tea table, poured him a glass of water, and made the scene more like a blind date. "But now you don't have to be in your secretary capacity. Just think of it as a blind date between us. Come, have some fruits. The secretary picked up a cherry and said helplessly, "Isn't this the plate of cherries I brought to entertain Theodore at noon? Please don't always hide them and eat them by yourself. Didn't I also leave 2 oranges for him on top?" He ate them all. Oliver, "Okay, I got it. I'll let him have some next time." The boss straightened his tie and cuffs, deliberately showing the Jaeger LeCoultre Westminster minute repeater on his left wrist. "So, why does Liam want to reject me? Marrying me should be a dream for many people, right?" "You're right in saying that. Let me ask first, what's your criteria for choosing a spouse? Why do you want to marry me?" The secretary was both amused and annoyed by the boss's little gestures. But he didn't dislike the boss's tendency to show off. Instead, he found it quite cute. The boss replied without hesitation, "It's very suitable. We've known each other for so many years. We understand each other well. And we're both at the age for marriage. Just being suitable isn't enough. You've had so many romantic partners. Haven't they all been suitable at some point? If it's about knowing you for a long time, understanding you, and having good professional skills, these are all things I should do as your secretary. Maybe in a few years, Noah will also meet these criteria. Are you going to marry him?" "No." The boss frowned. "How can he compare with you? Liam is different." The secretary smiled. "Anyway, those criteria you mentioned can be met by someone else. It's okay to find a secretary like that. But for marriage, you must find someone irreplaceable." "Ah, so you really won't consider me?" The boss showed a very distressed look. The secretary also liked this about him. He seemed so mysterious in front of others, but his eyes were so expressive when facing him. "To be honest, your decisive rejection hurt me a bit. It's not like that. I just have my own criteria. It may sound a bit childish, but I really hope the alpha I marry truly loves me." The secretary touched his nose and couldn't help softening his voice to comfort the boss. "You're also very excellent, Liam." "Boss, I really have to get off work." The boss also laughed. The secretary heard him laugh when he was on the phone with his mother. Since then, the boss would occasionally call him by his nickname when he was off work, and the secretary would always react strongly. The boss probably understood the secretary's persistence. Actually, he wasn't in such a hurry to get married. The urgent thing was, if you reject me, don't choose that alpha, or I'll be very sad, and if I'm sad, your salary will also be affected. "Sure, you can tell me when you've decided on someone to marry." The secretary blinked. "Until then, I'll reserve that spot for you." This time when he left, the boss didn't stop him. Just as Noah was about to get off work and came to report to the boss, he was startled by Liam, who rushed out from inside as soon as he knocked on the door. "Liam, why is your face so red?" The other party smiled awkwardly and didn't answer. He suspected that the boss had sexually harassed Liam again. Sniffing the air. Sure enough, he didn't smell a single beta. Entering the office, the boss was sitting in front of the coffee table thinking about life again. "Boss, what did you say to Liam again?" Noah leaned over. "Oh, the cherries have been washed. If you don't eat them, they'll go bad." He quickly stuffed one into his mouth. "Noah," the boss suddenly gave him a very profound look. "WH, what's wrong?" Noah grabbed 2 more cherries. The boss asked, "Do you want to marry me?" Noah was so startled that he put the cherries back on the plate and said, "I only ate one. I'll compensate you tomorrow." Okay. Another week ended. The familiar secretaries went for a dinner gathering. This time, Theodore treated. Noah asked Liam if he was going, but he shook his head and said he had something to do. It was very likely to be a barbecue and drinking gathering. He was afraid of getting drunk and causing trouble, so he might as well go home and rest for a while. Calculating the time, he could take off this neck ring next week. The smell of black tea on him had also faded a lot, but the secretary was a bit reluctant to return the boss's shirt. He had already developed feelings for this pajamas and couldn't sleep well without it every night. It's just a piece of clothing. The boss shouldn't notice, right? The secretary, harboring a glimmer of hope, changed into the overlong shirt again, poured the placebo into the aromatherapy machine, and left only a bedside light on. The placebo evaporated quickly. In less than half a minute, the small room was filled with the smell of black tea pheromones. This room was rented. The boss had come and asked him why he didn't buy a house. He said he wasn't in a hurry, but actually he had other plans. He wanted to buy a house in the blcommunity community. However, the housing price in that community was too high. He had only saved enough for the down payment and was still hesitating when to buy. The secretary closed his eyes and remembered what the boss had said today. "To be honest, your decisive rejection hurt me a bit." What was the boss's expression like at that time? It was no different from the expression that night when he said he wanted to bite the secretary's nape. He looked pitiful and was acting like a child. Coquettishly, "Liam smells so sweet. I'll bite gently. Just one bite." The tone was also deceptively gentle. Those two lips were pressed tightly against the nape of his neck, coaxing him vaguely. "It won't hurt and don't be afraid," and finally biting down. In fact, still hurt. The secretary whimpered softly, and tears slid across his burning cheeks, almost evaporating before they even fell. But it was also exhilarating. The alpha's pheromones rushed in, filling him up along with the alpha himself, making the secretary curl his toes. The smell of loquats in the air suddenly became strong, like a peeled loquat revealing its yellow pulp. With the sweet smell and juice overflowing, the secretary kicked off the quilt angrily. Just by recalling the boss, he had unexpectedly gone into heat uncontrollably. Bastard! The secretary bit his collar tightly, pretending that he had bitten the boss fiercely. "He's really killing me." This dinner was actually mainly to welcome the new manager Gao. Some people were chatting, and some were eating. Only Noah was chugging away there. It's not that he can really hold his liquor. He gets excited in social gatherings and always gets drunk. Isabella was pulling him on one side. "Stop drinking. Although you don't have much of an image anyway. Manager Gao is new here. You should at least maintain a superficial sense of restraint." Noah giggled and said, "Isabella, don't you think Manager Gao looks like a celebrity?" As he spoke, he stumbled forward, holding a wine glass, ready to go over and strike up a conversation. But halfway there, Theodore grabbed him and hauled him back. "What are you doing? Don't think that it's not illegal for a beta to sexually harass others." Theodore shook Noah and found that he was already drunk out of his mind. "All right, where do you live? I'll call you a car to go home." Noah shook his head. "I'm not leaving. If I leave, you'll be drugged, and then you'll get lost, and I'll be in big trouble." What nonsense was this kid talking about? "Tell me where your home is quickly." However, until the dinner was over and everyone had left, he still couldn't find out where Noah lived. This guy insisted that he lived in Nebula M. Theodore couldn't just leave him there, so he had to stay in the private room and wait for him to sober up. "What do you have to be so worried about?" Theodore sighed as he looked at Noah lying spread eagle on the floor. "You just run errands for us every day. Is it really that tiring?" Noah got up upon hearing that. "Why wouldn't I be worried?" "I'm worried that bastard Oliver won't die soon enough." Theodore was shocked. "Are you crazy? How dare you call the boss by his full name? Because he's not a human being. Do you know? He clearly promised to take me to have sukiyaki, but in the end, he took me to have plain spicy hot pot." Noah burst into tears. "Is this something a human would do?" "No." "Well, this was really something the boss would do." Just as Theodore was about to comfort him, Noah suddenly jumped up and pinned him to the ground. "Hey, the floor is cold. What are you doing?" Noah grabbed his collar and sobbed. "All you've lost is love, but what I've lost is my freedom." Theodore was afraid that he might mistake him for someone else and strangle him. "Noah, this is a society under the rule of law. I'm not the cruel boss." Noah lowered his head and got very close, almost cross-eyed. "Ah, it's Theodore." Just as Theodore was about to tell him to get off him, he saw Noah's tears falling one by one, and then he asked him very seriously, "Theodore, do you understand what love is?" Theodore tried to sit up a bit. "I may not really understand. Love not only tortures oneself, but also the people around you." Noah wailed. "This fire of love is going to burn me to death." "Well, then you can pour your heart out to me a little." "Really? But I should have kept this matter in my heart. It should be a secret. If I tell you, you will also suffer. Can you understand me?" "Theodore." Theodore was shocked again. What did this mean? Could it be? "Can you make it clearer?" Noah shook his head. "Feelings are always unclear. Just pretend you didn't hear what I said today. You can't just pretend you didn't hear this." "Noah, don't fall asleep." Before he could finish his sentence, Noah slumped into his arms and fell asleep. Theodore hadn't recovered from the huge shock yet. Another 5 minutes passed. Seeing that the other person really wouldn't wake up, he had no choice but to carry the person on his back dutifully and went out to settle the bill. He called Liam, but Liam didn't answer. Then he called the boss. "Why are you calling me so late?" Theodore hesitated for a moment. "Oliver, I found that Noah seems to like me." The boss said, "Are you crazy?" "No, it's true. He just drank too much. Forget it. It's hard to explain. I'll tell you tomorrow." "Hey, he's just like this. He acts crazy when he drinks too much. If he falls asleep, he definitely won't wake up. Alas, he's really useless." Theodore asked a question that had been hidden in his heart for many years. Then why haven't you fired him yet? Don't be like this. Although Noah is not smart, complains every day and gets drunk and acts crazy, the boss said seriously. But he is a relative by connection. Theodore was speechless. Whose connection? He's drunk. Hurry up. I'll send him away. The boss said, he's my cousin. Bring him here. It's been High Garden Community. Call me when you arrive. At work today. Liam found that Noah looked completely gray. He was lying on the table, listlessly counting the bills. Are you okay? Noah said with tears in his eyes. It's okay. It's just that I vomited on a wool carpet and have to compensate my cousin with a month's salary. I can still hold on. Liam, I've kept our secret. Facing the bourgeois blood-sucking goblin, he held his ground and never betrayed Liam. The boss called me good for nothing again and said he gave me money, but I still couldn't handle things well. Noah crawled over and hugged Liam's waist. I did all this for you. Hiring a private detective to investigate Hammer. Isn't it just him? Liam stroked his head. He scolds you a good for nothing every day. I thought you were used to it. Please marry him quickly. I'm begging you. Noah was still crying bitterly when the boss came to work. He gave Noah a slap on the head and said, What are you doing? Pulling and tugging like this. Let go right away. Marry who? You even dare to urge Liam to get married. Do you want to die? Noah couldn't express his bitterness. Oliver, in the future, you will definitely hate yourself for being a fool now. No need. I already regret hiring you into the company in the past. The boss pushed him away. Go and buy me a cup of coffee. The boss noticed that the annoying collar around the secretary's neck had disappeared. In a good mood, he leaned over and asked, Can I have a smell? Coincidentally, the secretary was also in a good mood because he had refused the boss's proposal once. So he slightly bent his neck and signaled, It's only you who can smell it. There's no smell left. If you say such things again, I'll really report you for sexual harassment. The boss thought to himself, how could it be called harassment to harass the secretary? I'm harassing with the intention of getting married. Isn't that allowed? He sniffed the secretary's neck. There was a faint loquat smell. And a bit of my smell. He wanted to smell more carefully, but the secretary lifted his head. Stop fooling around. It's time for you to work. The secretary's ears turned red and he refused to look at the boss again. Was it an illusion? He really smelled a faint smell of black tea coming from the secretary. It wasn't strong, but it was lingering, making his heart itch. The fragrance of the placebo only lasted for 5 hours. It couldn't be that the secretary used it before coming to work. And it definitely wasn't perfume because the secretary never wore that kind of thing as he didn't like the smell. What made the secretary smell like him? The boss fell into deep thought. Could something special have happened without his knowledge? Sorry. Noah bowed at a 90-degree angle. I apologize to you for my excessive words and deeds after getting drunk. Would you like to have some milk tea? He respectfully offered the milk tea. And I bought you 2 KFC egg tarts. Theodore sighed and said, Forget it. I'm quite full now. You can eat them by yourself. Okay, then I'll punish myself with a cup of milk tea for my rudeness. Noah inserted a straw into the milk tea. Let's just forget about what happened that night. Pretend you never heard it. I can't pretend I never heard it once I've heard it. Theodore tapped the table. How could one turn a blind eye to the feeling of love? Noah was shocked. He couldn't remember clearly. Could it be that he had blurted out Liam's secret that night? Did I tell everything? You didn't say it explicitly, but I understood the general idea. How could this happen? Noah was on the verge of tears. Have you told the boss? Please, don't tell him. Okay, not yet. Maybe it was because he felt embarrassed to tell his cousin? Theodore intended to preserve Noah's dignity. Are you really afraid of this? Noah nodded frantically. Yes. Let this be a secret just between you and me, known only to heaven, earth, you and me, okay? Is unrequited love such a humble thing? Theodore looked at the pitiful Noah and his sympathy welled up. Noah liked him but didn't dare to tell others. He couldn't help asking, Then, what are your requests? Requests? What requests? Noah looked completely confused. You're the one helping me keep the secret. Shouldn't you be the one making requests of me? Theodore said, How could I use this to threaten you? Do you think I'm the same kind of person as Oliver in your eyes? He patted Noah on the shoulder. Noah, you need to have more confidence in yourself. Don't be so humble. Theodore, thank you. Noah shed touched tears. What a kind Theodore. Encouraging him. From this moment on, the revolutionary friendship between him and the manager was established. The two of them would be comrades in arms from then on. The boss received a text message from Theodore. Keep it a secret that Noah has feelings for me. Liam, do you know? The boss looked up and said, "Noah has a crush on Theodore." "Really?" Liam was greatly surprised. "He's really good at hiding it." Now, everyone in Noah's family knows that he has a crush on Theodore from the company. For unavoidable business entertainments, the boss will definitely take Liam with him. Firstly, Liam knows how to handle things and can remember all the names clearly. Secondly, taking Noah might lead to him getting drunk and going crazy on the spot. The secretary ties a full and firm Windsor knot when putting on a tie. He is focused and gentle. But the boss likes the way he slightly tilts his head to look at himself after tying the tie the most. Usually, the secretary would compliment him. "You look very handsome today." When he first came to the company, he tied his tie very well. He would never make the same mistake twice once it was pointed out to him. He learned everything quickly. So, after only 1 month of internship, the boss discussed the full-time employment contract with him in advance. At that time, the boss had just taken over his mother's company. He was only 25. Very young, the company's shareholders often made things difficult for him. The secretary was 21 when he started working with the boss and was an Omega, so he often suffered. Everyone laughed at their combination. A young boss with an intern secretary. They said that Group X was doomed. It was common for them to read people's faces, and they toasted so much that they almost got alcohol poisoning. The two of them stood on the overpass, letting the cold wind blow on them. The secretary, who had just graduated from school, didn't have strong enough stress resistance. With red eyes and sobbing, he said that he was sorry to Oliver. He thought that if it were someone else, they would handle things better than him. "There are so many experienced people. Why did you choose me?" the secretary asked. "I don't have much experience either. We're a rookie combination," the boss said, patting his head. "But I think we're both smart. Experience is accumulated. In the future, we'll definitely do better than them." In the boss's ambitious blueprint, Liam was the first person he selected. Later, the company got better and better, and the staff was gradually replaced by a new team promoted by the boss. Now, 7 years have passed. It's not too long, and the one who has accompanied him the longest is still the secretary who stood on the overpass with him to sober up that year. "You mustn't job hop. If you do, my company will collapse." The boss would occasionally joke like this.